Okay, this is now the Tarot Q&A number 11, and today it's 4 parts. Part 1, I'm going to talk a little bit of a follow-up to the last video. Part 2 is I'm going to show you some diagrams so you can understand better what a horoscope is. Part 3, I'm going to talk about setting up to do a horoscope spread. And then part 4, I'll show you the 3 cards that I got for 3 of the houses. I'm sorry, I've got some notes over here. So, okay, from the last video, let's say you ask for something, or there's something you want today, and you have an idea or a picture in your mind of what the finished product will look like, or what you expect to happen or to change or to be changed when you actually get what it is that you want. And let's say you've got to go through 4 steps to get there. Maybe there's a meeting, a phone call, you understand something, you discover something, and maybe there's a short trip, and then you get what it is that you want. But you've got to go through a few steps. The thing is, the person who actually gets the finished product or gets what it is that you asked for is not the same person as the one who asked. Because you next week are going to be slightly different or very different from you today. And I think it's important to remember that when we ask for something, rather than have a fixed image of what the finished product looks like, or what we're going to feel like, or what's going to happen next, you're better to enjoy the journey, because otherwise you'll superimpose the past onto the future. So you stay up to date. As you ask for things and you're looking for them to come about, and you're cooperating with what comes to you to make it come about, stay up to date with yourself, rather than keep looking for the finished product. Okay, so I've got 5 diagrams to tell you about, and I hope I can remember them. The first one is a circle. And that is, the zodiac is the circle of animals. And I want to make the point with a circle that it has no beginning and no end. And that means you can start anywhere, right? You can start over here or over there or up here. And that's partly why when we come to turning the chart, why it makes sense that you can, in a horoscope, you've got the first house is the self, and the third house is the brothers and sisters, and the 5th house is children. But because it's a circle, you can start with children and renumber the houses. So it's not contradictory. It's just, if you can understand that with a circle you can begin anywhere, and with a horoscope spread you can begin anywhere as well. But the important thing is, diagram number 2, there's a horizon. There's a horizontal line across the circle, and that's the horizon. And so over here, at the 9 o'clock position, that's sunrise, so to speak. That's the ascendant. And that's why we begin. The first card goes there, and then you go counterclockwise around and place the other cards. It's so you can orient things. There are differences between what's above the horizon and what's below. The third diagram, I think I drew some spokes to give you an idea of what a horoscope looks like. A blank one, where you've got the zodiac around the outside, and you've got the 12 spokes, the 12 houses. And then the next diagram should be the houses numbered. So the one over on the left there, as you look at it, is going to be number 1, and then below it number 2, number 3, and so on. And those are the meanings of the numbers of the houses. And for houses, they describe different areas of life experience, and they show what you can logically and reasonably expect in different areas of life. So maybe instead of thinking of them houses as numbered, maybe think about them as controlling or ruling different matters. So if it's a communication problem or matter or situation, you look to the 3rd house, because the 3rd house rules communication. if it's a relationship problem or question or situation, that's a seventh house matter, because the seventh house rules partnerships. So instead of thinking about experiences, maybe think about the matter that is controlled by or ruled by a particular house. So if the question is about friendships, that's an 11th house matter. So if you want to look at your first child's friends, the 5th house is the first child. It's an 11th house matter for the child. So you go 11 houses around and you end up with the 3rd. But we'll come to that. And then the last diagram, I think, is this one. Should be this one, which shows you how to lay a horoscope spread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, round that way. Okay, I hope that's clear, but it's kind of confusing. So if you don't, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm kind of used to it. But I know in the beginning it's awkward and it's tricky, and it can take a little bit to get your head around it, but you'll get there. Okay, then if you want to do a horoscope spread, the thing about horoscopes is, and horoscope spreads, it doesn't tell you anything until you ask it a question, especially horoscopes. So if you want to know about multiple areas of your life, so you want to know a bit about you, a bit about your children, a bit about a partnership, a bit about a foreign trip you're thinking of making, then lay 12 cards in a horoscope, and the first house is you. And all the other houses relate to you. So the 2nd is your values, the 3rd is your communication. Okay, so, but then if you want specific details about different areas of your life, you can renumber the houses. So if you want to know about your first child's, what your first child is thinking about or talking about, use the first child is the 5th house, and then you in the same way you can begin the circle anywhere. Start with the 5th house. So the 6th is the child's values, the 7th, as you laid it, because we started with you, remember, as you laid it, is going to be how the child is communicating. So that's one thing. If you want you to be the subject, and then you can delve into or get details about subcategories of your life, let's say, then start with you and the ascendant as the first house. But if, let's say you want to know about business, let's say you're in business, and you want to know about business and what's happening with it, lay a horoscope spread, but the first house is going to be the self of the business, right? You don't go, the 10th is normally the business house, but you go to the first house is the self of the business, and the 2nd house is going to be the earned income of the business, and the 3rd house is going to be the communication of the business, how well it gets its message across. Maybe it's branding or whatever it happens to be, letters or flyers that the business sends out. Whereas, let's say you want to know about your first child. Let's say the first child's name is Bob. You want to know about Bob. So you lay a horoscope spread, but the first house is going to be Bob himself. The 2nd house is going to be Bob's income. The 3rd house is how Bob communicates, and so on. So it depends what you want to know with a horoscope spread. If you want to know bits and pieces of information about you, then lay a horoscope spread. The first house is you, and all the other houses relate back to you in some way. But then if you want subcategories, you can rethink the numbering of the houses. Whereas if your question is about friends or your friendships, well, if your subject is about brothers and sisters, then house 1 becomes your brothers and sisters, And then the second house would be your brothers and sisters' income or values, and so on. I hope I'm not confusing you. The other point to consider is think about the time frame. If you're going to do a horoscope spread, it's not forever. So maybe you think, okay, I'm doing a horoscope spread show me what's going to happen to me until the end of the year, or this month, or until my birthday. So figure out the time frame in advance. And that's part of the question. A horoscope spread for me until the end of the year. And then you've got an end point. And that can mean that the fourth house that I spoke about before, which shows a condition at the end of life, the fourth house will show what kind of shape you'll be in at the end of the year. If you ask about, tell me about from now till the end of the year, you've got an idea of what you're going to be like at that point. Or maybe it's tell me about the end of this month. Again, the fourth house is the condition at the end of life, or in this case, the condition at the end of this month. Okay. So then 3 cards left. So the seventh house, this is maybe a bit new. The seventh house shows partnerships. So the first house is you, and opposite the first house is everybody else in your life, other people, in particular the marriage partner. So with this, if you lay a spread for you and you want to know about your significant other, as they say, look to the seventh house, and the card there will give you an idea of how relationships are going, what you can expect, what the partner is about, what the partner's doing, whatever it is that you want to know. So I happen to have the Hierophant in the seventh house. And so my wife at the moment, her name's Susan, recently she's been doing, with the Hierophant, you get people teaching and learning. The Hierophant there and the 2 people down below. So the other people in my life are teaching and learning at the moment. My wife, she's been spending quite a lot of time on Zoom calls and phone calls with various people, and, doing what you can to help them out, to make sense of what's happening in their life, or to solve problems that they've got, and that kind of thing. And it's described quite well by the Hierophant. So something to remember is, if I'd got the Hermit in the seventh house, then we're looking at a very different type of people in my life at the moment, and different behavior on their part. So if the Hermit shows up in the seventh house, other people are keeping to themselves, but they're not, because the Hierophant is there. And that's something that I'll mention in passing. Sometimes when you look at a card, remember what's not there. And that can give you an idea of what to do with the card that actually is there. So I don't have the Hermit in the seventh house. People are not keeping to themselves. I don't have the 3 of Swords in the seventh house. People are not destroyed or grief-stricken. The 3 of Swords. Okay. So the 7th is other people. The 8th is because I'm looking at from the point of view of me, because it's my horoscope spread. The 8th house is my death and regeneration. We're not so much concerned about my actual death, but more my regeneration. So I've got the World there. So if you think of the 8th as change, things have to be left behind so that new things can develop and grow. And I've got the World in the 8th house. So death and regeneration is a good area for me at the moment. So if I want to incorporate changed situations or make changes in my life, then I'm going to experience success and growth and good times because the World is there. So now would be a good time, or now is a good time, to make changes, to do things differently and see how they go. I'll be pleased with the results because the World is there. So maybe it would be a time, if I ate badly it would be a good time to change my diet. If I sat around all day, every day, and did nothing, it would be a good time to exercise, right? Because that's change and regeneration. You want to at the beginning of the word meaning again. You want to generate yourself again and make things happen along lines that you actually want. And if I do things like that with the world there, I'll be happy. The 9th house is my philosophy. I mean, it's foreign travel as well. So, and in the 9th house, I get the 8 of Swords reversed. So I'm not going to Europe anytime soon. But then, you knew that. So with it, but I'm not thinking of going anywhere particularly. But you can look at the 9th as your philosophy of life. So I get the 8 of Swords reversed there. So you can say, my philosophy of life is stuck, or I think life is pointless, and you can never do anything or go anywhere. And occasionally I do, because I mentioned before about the existential vacuum I sometimes fall into. But we want to do an interpretation. So with the 8 of Swords reversed, I'm not supposed to go to new places. But if you think of it as philosophy, I'm not supposed to start studying or looking at new philosophies. But instead, I'm supposed to develop and make use of what I've already come across or discovered or understood. So I'm supposed to, it makes more sense to make use of what I know or what I've discovered rather than look for new things. So maybe it's time to actually write that and set up that new channel that I've been speaking about for quite a long time. So maybe I should just do it and make a start. Okay, that's the 7th, 8th and 9th houses. Next will be probably the 10th, 11th and 12th, and then we'll look at an overview. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in a couple of days. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.